I'd like to start with acknowledging the custodians, the traditional custodians of the land we meet on today, and pay my respect to the elders, the past, the present, and emerging. So Adelaide by the City, as we've heard today, we all know that governments across the globe are heavily investing in innovation districts, as they have also done here in Adelaide in the last decades. And we've seen evidence about the social and economic impacts gaining from those innovation districts that evolved during the last decades everywhere. I'm trying to do the clicker. Yes. Where do I reach? Yes, perfect. I was right. The direction. Okay. Thank you. So today I will give you a quick snapshot around Adelaide by the City, the Health and Medical Innovation District here in Adelaide, South Australia. I talk a little bit about the why. Why are they globally emerging? What are the key elements? I talk about the what. What are these key elements that leading to globally significance? And I will integrate some of the best practice during the presentation. Yeah, clicker is working nicely. So here you see our broader ecosystem of innovation districts. And Professor Enderbeer already talked about Lot 14 and Tansley, the one that just popped up. So there are several innovation districts here in the South Australian ecosystem, all in very close proximity. And I like to highlight two of them in specific. And the first one is Lot 14. Professor Enderbeer talked about it. It's only a 5 minutes tram ride, 10-15 minutes walk away from our Health and Medical Innovation District, LA Biomed City, and is really focused on data analysis, AI, sensors, robotics, a lot of defense and space focus in there. So it's a really entrepreneurial environment. And if you go to the south, that's a 20-minute train ride away. It's Tansley Innovation District. They focus on renewable energies, also the health and medical sector, more the medtech space, assistive technologies. They do a lot in mining, also mentioned. But the reason I mention it here is because for an innovation district in health and medical, this is very important that we're so closely connected and also in the same proximity of each other, because the future of health and medical is all multidisciplinary, as we all know. So we're looking and we're working closely with the robotics, with the AI, and all the emerging technologies, converging them into the health and medical sector. So this is Adelaide Biomed City. Initial investment of $4.2 billion in healthcare infrastructure, really building world-class infrastructure here. It's located in the heart of Adelaide. We're connected to the parklands in the back. It's a lot of green space, but also connected to the CBD, where there's opportunities for housing, there's an entertainment center and a culture district just located next to us. So this is really to deliver multidisciplinary collaboration and to drive innovation and translation. So this is the map of the same. At the left, you see our health innovation district, but connected to it, the entertainment, the cultural, and in the blue, the Lot 14 entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem. And at the top, you see the green landscape, our parklands. And at the bottom, you see the CBD. So you see the proximity, which is very, very important to us to drive. We're growing. There are several developments in our neighborhood. This is a 500 million Australian rec center. The bunker is currently being built. There's a lot of concrete going in there, I can tell you, because it will house the first proton therapy center of Australia. It will be finished and developed in 2023, but also a lot of it's space for innovation, for industry. The different institutes like the South Australian Health and Medical Research Institute will be housed in there. We're building this comprehensive cancer center around it. You see the 1.29 billion Women's and Children's Hospital. It's in the final planning stage. It's at the other side of our Royal Adelaide Hospital, It's the largest state teaching hospital here in Adelaide in South Australia. And we connected again up with the innovation ecosystem. There are bridges between the academic teaching hospitals. We have shared infrastructure like a shared helicopter deck, but also shared lab spaces It's really, building that integrated structure to drive collaboration. You have the Trinity City there at the right. It's a different type of building. It allows for industry to be very close to us. We're talking about global big pharma, health and medical consultancy, high-tech firms have opportunities to reside next to our clinicians, next to our researchers and our patients. And at the bottom, a biomed development, 3.6 hectare, quite a big space. Also, just literally 5-10 minutes walk from our Royal Adelaide Hospital. So the reason why companies are currently knocking on our door is mainly that one-side access to a large pool of highly skilled researchers and clinicians, the many knowledge sharing opportunities, but also really that connected up ecosystem. Again, with those other innovation districts, we're very connected up. So, and also because of other, if you look at Adelaide, it's even this year again ranked in the top 10 and even the third as most livable city in 2021. And we're very proud of it. And people who visited us and live here can acknowledge that. But it's also one of the most affordable cities of the Australian capitals. So from a business perspective, there are many advantages, and also from an employee perspective to come to Adelaide. These are some of our key partners at the top, the core anchor institute. So our Royal Adelaide Hospital, that's part of the Central Adelaide Local Health Network, the Women's and Children's Hospital, the South Australian Health and Medical Research Institute, our 3 state universities, the University of Adelaide, University of South Australia, and Flinders University, and also the government. And, just several partners to highlight, maybe the Australian Institute for Machine Learning. I think Professor Andrew Beer mentioned that as well in a speech, one of our key partners in there. So why are innovation districts emerging across the globe? Well, I went a little bit too fast. If I look at the challenges in healthcare, we have an aging population. I think almost every country has an aging population. We here in Australia as well. It's estimated that 22% to be older than 65 by 2057. But we also have a growing burden of chronic disease. We're reaching 1 of every 2 Australian that have one of the 10 listed chronic diseases. And if you look at the population above 60, it's even 80%. So 1 of every 8. And if you connect those chronic disease with the rate of death, 90% are related. We have a high cost of healthcare, 10% of GDP. The US is already reaching almost a 20%. And we have a shortfall of staff. In this case, I mentioned the GP, but that's also in a specialty area. So there's significant challenges facing us in the healthcare sector, but we also have a lot of opportunity. There is exponential growth in many of the markets. If you only look at the global digital health market, it was 145 billion in 2020 and expected to increase to 767 billion by 2030. So you see that exponential growth in there, but also in the AI and healthcare markets. If you look at the opportunities in AI in, for example, drug discovery, it's been stated that bringing a drug to market costs around 2.8 billion over 12 years. There's a potential for a reduction of 70% in that. So there's many opportunities in this market for us. So innovation districts are known to build stronger and more resilient economies. They've proven that in several places in the world. It creates more jobs. It creates better jobs, high-tech, high R&D intensive jobs. It creates an increased productivity that's been talked about today as well. The social impact, especially as you connect your local challenges of your community to your research agenda and that translation into that. Inclusive, so also is looking at problem solving from what's real in your community, how to solve that and get those specialists together with your community. Sustainable, if there's, we've seen that with economic downturns, the innovation district, the high-tech industries and the sectors in R&D intensive, they didn't see that downturn. They're stable and resilient. But also if I look at the quality of life, a lot of young families want to have the opportunity from their career perspective, but also have a nice life and, easy to accessible to get to work. We have a healthcare center, a daycare center at the roof terrace of our Royal Adelaide Hospital, so they can easily transit to work, get back home, take care of the children. There are nice parklands and beautiful areas surrounding our precinct. So that's a really important reason why we all need to attract the talent. Is there's a shortage of that to increase that. The multiplier effect of innovation, I think, yeah, we all know that. The economist Enrico Moretti, he in his report, he stated that every high-tech job generates 5 other jobs. So there's a significant multiplier effect in here. What we're already seeing when we talked about lot force in LA Biomed City, attracting those talents across the globe creates that multiplier effect. So what do globally significant innovation districts look like? We first have to understand what are the key elements, the key characteristic that leads to that. How can we further evolve? Let's just take an example, Mars. And this is a definition that is used by the Brookings Institutes. What is an innovation district? It's a compact, very compact, vibrant innovation ecosystem with cutting-edge research, R&D intensive companies, startup business incubators, but also with housing, office and retail space. In the old days, you had the Silicon Valley, you had to drive far. There was not a lot focus on livability. That's changing over the year. Innovation district is really combining that livability with your career and the opportunities to drive that economy. A place where business want to locate and a place where people want to live. So people talk about clusters, precinct, innovation district, interchangeable. Often they start from a hospital or university, a high intensive R&D company, and more people cluster around them. But then you see that upskill in the precinct. So you see at the bottom that 20% productivity uplift. What we talked about today had the importance of that productivity uplift. So you get more people in the game, the startups, accelerators, more capital firms coming in. But then you move into that innovation district. And then we're starting to talk about that interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary approach. What we're talking about, bringing that robotics, the emerging technologies, AI into attract more investments, but also that retail and housing. The law firms, the legal parties, all coming together in that mix. And that's where you create that 50% and bringing the creative industries in there, the gaming industry. There's a lot of opportunities in AR, VR gaming, what we can integrate in our healthcare system. So innovation district consists of 3 key assets. And the physical assets, the knowledge and economic assets, and the networking assets. And if you combine that together and really build a culture of entrepreneurship around it and a culture of innovation, that's where that innovation district arises. This is just a quote again from the Brookings Institute. It's really to create that breathing communities rather than a sterile compound of silos. I'm from the Netherlands, so I like to highlight one of the Dutch innovation districts, probably quite well known to several of you. It's a high-tech campus in Eindhoven. Every time I was there, you just feel the vibe, you feel the energy. And, it started, I think, in 1998 by a company, Philips, well known from the light bulbs, very well known in healthcare as well nowadays. But that's where it all started. And nowadays, there are 235 high-tech companies surrounding it. But they also have this famous strip. And the strip, that's where everything happens. There's sports centers, there are wellness centers, there's innovation space, and there's a lot happening in that strip. So people collide, people come together there, people want their business to be housed here, people want to live here. If you look about the knowledge and economic assets, we talk about our state universities, our medical school, our hospitals, but also about the Australian Break Centre, what I mentioned earlier, that will house Australian first proton therapy being. Another example here is Biosina, who just transferred from a Pfizer factory to a Biosina factory, but really delivers the GMP manufacturing of micro-based therapeutics and mRNA vaccines. But they're the only one in Australia that are TGA, AMA, Health Canada, and FDA approved, which is an enormous asset for us here in South Australia. FuseTech, they're revolutionized. They just moved to a new building into our innovation district. They're revolutionizing medical training, more in the surgical training space. A lot of R&D happening in that company. But also the physical assets, so the second one. Then we talk about public realm, open spaces, innovation spaces, shared lab spaces where the clinicians, researchers from the different universities, from the different groups coming together, where industry comes together. We have a Museum of Discovery from the University of South Australia in our innovation district. That's a future-focused museum that inspires young people into STEM. So it attracts those young people, the parents, our community into an innovation district. We have, of course, our collaboration centers, our accelerators and incubators, but also if you look at how the Royal Adelaide Hospital has been designed, there's a lot of focus on mental health, around green spaces, around bringing light into the private rooms of the patients, allowing them to easily have accessibility to gardens. And that's all really integrated in the design of the building. If we look at networking assets, I think to highlight two things is we talked about collaboration, like deep connections, deep collaboration, but there are two types. There are strong and weak ties. And the strong ones are, we all know, we're in a certain field. We know our specialists, our peers in that field. We connect with them, we talk to them. It's quite easily to share information. You understand each other. But then you have the weak ties. And when they both come together, research has shown that's where you can really accelerate. And the weak ties are from the creative sectors, bringing them in. And, it takes a lot of effort and focus to properly, stimulate and encourage that. And it's not a clear outcome when you start the conversation. So look at the key elements. I think it's mentioned today as well, leadership networks. It's very important because all those leaders have significant influence and power on their own. But when they come together, and then we're talking about the government, the institutes, the landowners, the universities, the hospital CEOs and leaders, the entrepreneurs, when they all come together, the investors, that's where you create a real power. So creating that really broad and also deep connections in that leadership to have a shared vision together, but also execute on it. That's where that's what we're building to further accelerate on that. This is our governance structure. As you see at the black, it's our board. It's an independent skill-based board we're transferring to, really bringing again the diversity into there. The entrepreneurs, the academics, the innovators, the clinical care leaders, the research leaders, all bringing them together, the venture capitalists, to lead our innovation district. And at the top left, you have the Partners Council that are the leaders, the top leadership group of our core anchor institutes. So the universities, our hospitals, they significantly influence our strategy and our directions and a significant interaction. And we have a delivery team, an intermediate partner to deliver it all. It needs to have a strategic process to deliver on that. I got this from a quite interesting paper from the New South Wales Productivity and Innovation Commission, a report from 2018, and it talks about what are the key factors of success. And these are the leadership, culture, collaboration, the three, then the infrastructure, amenity, the market drivers, and competitive advantage. And I leverage this to make a heat map from it, to understand where are we now? Where are we positioned? We need to understand the starting point to decide on our strategic direction. So this is just an example. It's not our real heat map, but I showed you just to show how we strategize our innovation district based on the 7 factors of success. Israel, I think I mentioned it's only a population of 9 million, and they're out benchmarked in terms of capital investment coming into the country, commercial spin-outs. And I want to mention just the one at the bottom right, Kutzpass. I don't know if people know that, but it talks about bravery that kind of borders to rudeness. People are not afraid to tell what they think. And there's a very open conversation and also some hard conversation, but that's needed to bring that to that next level. I think that's the key one to highlight here. I won't go into this one. I think we all get that. Yeah, I want to conclude with, please follow us on LinkedIn if you're interested to hear more what we're doing, or just reach out to me. We have on our website some webinars if you want to understand our real key capabilities. In our precinct, we have mini reviews, webinars. It's 2 times 8 minutes, very short, very targeted around really wide topics from AI to genomics to metabolomics, to our registers. We have our national registers we house in a precinct. So it talks about all our capabilities. So if you're interested in certain areas, have a look at those recordings, because you will find what our capabilities are, the key leaders, the institutes engaging in that. Thank you for today.